screen. Okay, welcome to the multi-locational meeting of Cabinet held here at Penalta House and via Microsoft Teams on Wednesday the 12th of November 2025 at 1 p.m. Before I go to the first agenda item, I'd like to welcome Councillor Carol Andrews as one of the new deputy leaders of the council, who's here on my right, and also Councillor Shane Cook, who's been made one of the other deputy leaders of the council, and also a new member of the cabinet, Councillor Amanda McConnell, who will take on the role of cabinet member for climate change. Welcome, Amanda, and welcome everybody else into your positions. Okay. First thing on the agenda is to receive apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence? No. Okay, and that's fine. Okay, item number 2, declarations of interest. Councillors and officers are reminded of their personal responsibility to declare any personal and or prejudicial interests in respect to any item of business on this agenda in accordance with the Local Government Act 2000, the Council's Constitution and the Code of Conduct for both councillors and officers. Councillor Stenner.
Yeah, I've got a declaration of interest in the agenda item number 5, the tenant engagement. I'm chair of Phillipstown Residents and Tenants Association.
Rob?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Stenner. Yeah, that's certainly a declaration that you ought to declare, but I would advise you, I think that's just a personal interest, so you can stay in the meeting, take part in the debate and vote.
Okay. Is that okay? Do you feel comfortable? Or
Well,
it's up to you, obviously.
Thank you. It is a matter for you, Councillor Stenner. If you wanted to leave the meeting on the basis of your chairmanship, that's a matter for you. But in my opinion, it's a personal interest rather than a personal and a prejudicial interest. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Okay, we'll move on to the item number 3. Oh, sorry, Councillor Morgan.
Yeah, sorry. With regards item 5, I work closely with the Graig Community Association. I'm not exactly on the committee, but we do work closely with them. And obviously because they're within my ward, I don't know if I declare.
No, I don't think there's any need, Councillor Morgan, on the basis that you are not a member of that committee. So you may work closely with them, but you are not an officer, if you like, a member of that committee. Thanks.
Okay then, no further declarations. Okay, item number 3, the Cabinet held on the 17th of September 2025. Going through for accuracy, page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Somebody prepared to move? Second. All those in favour? Accuracy of the...
Thank you.
Okay.
I abstain, Mr.
Thanks.
Chanter.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Item number 4, the Cabinet Forward Work Programme. Okay. I think this is up to about February of March next year. Anybody got anything to add or to amend? Everything okay in terms of the Forward Work Programme? Okay, Rob, are we okay to go to a vote on that one, or is it just show of hands?
That's just sorry. That's just for noting, leader, rather than a formal vote. It's on every agenda of cabinet, so it's for noting. No vote required. Thank you.
No problem. Okay. Right, we go on to our first substantive item on the agenda then. That's agenda number 5. That's tenant engagement. And to introduce this report, Councillor Shane Cook.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. This report is a set out the core aims and objectives of the new Caerphilly Homes Tenant Engagement Strategy 2025-2032. The last report to members on tenant engagement was in February 2023. This report provides an update on the progress made and the developments related to the activities previously outlined in 2023. A new 7-year tenant engagement strategy has been co-produced with tenants and Caerphilly Homes staff. This strategy sets out Caerphilly Homes' commitment to working in partnership and with tenants to shape the services that matter most to them. The report also notes the relationship between Caerphilly Homes and tenants and residents associations, which has changed over time. Associations have been contacted for views on the proposal, and the report was presented to the Housing and Environment Scrutiny Committee on the 16th of September 2025. Members universally agreed the recommendations that current funding arrangements be discontinued and advice and support to associations be offered when requested, widened consultation to other community groups as well as the remaining associations. Act as a link if any community group has a housing issue in their area. The existing budget be retained to support consultation with wider community groups and associations that may seek funding support in the future. Therefore, Leader, can I please move the recommendations at 3, including support in the option 3 at 3.3. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cook. Somebody prepared a second. Councillor Elaine Forrest.
Yeah, thanks, Leader. Can I please second the recommendations at option 3, and can I come in with some questions, please?
Definitely. Quite
Okay.
away.
My first question is, what impact might discontinued formal recognition and funding of the T&RAs have on tenant representation? Shall I give them all together?
Yeah, you've got 2 questions, you do?
Well, I've added another one in
Yeah,
now
go
as
on.
well.
If that's okay, Nick.
Okay.
and Fiona.
Second question is, how will we ensure that tenants without access to community groups are still consulted? And the third one is, how will the retained budget for engagement be reallocated under option 3? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Forward. So I think one reason why we arrived at the recommendation to cease the recognition is the level of engagement that we were having from the groups over the years, and they were very much community-focused groups, rightfully so, as it says on the tin, and not necessarily directly around tenancy or housing issues, but the removal of the recognition does not mean that we won't be engaging with the tenants and the communities in the future, far from it, hence the very detailed 7-year strategy on tenant engagement that you've got in front of you today. We will continue to do that through various routes, our tenant information exchange and other contact we have with our tenants, and those tenants and resident associations won't be used as a route of engagement anymore. We will continue to use all the other routes of engagement that we've got. So the removal of that recognition will not impact negatively on the representation necessarily of those communities or those residents. Your second question, how will you ensure that we're still engaging and getting their views? You may be aware, I think it's in the paper as well, around our tenant satisfaction survey that we are currently live and out for across with our tenants. It's a 50% survey this year. We did a 100% survey last year. It's a Welsh Government requirement, and we gave a number of indicators about how we engage with our tenants, and from that we have developed an action plan. And that action plan will then deliver various work streams as detailed within the new tenant engagement strategy. So all those groups will still be able to engage, even though they're not recognised groups any further. I think the last one was around the budget. It was a small budget. It was a notional budget to help support set up meetings, venue hire, teas and coffees and stuff like that. But that budget is still going to be kind of made available for other groups and community representation to come to us. We might look at evolving that slightly, whether they needed help on constituting if there were new groups and how they'd engage and how they meet as a group. And equally, they might even kind of look at how they might engage more digitally with us, because that's an area that we need to improve. So we would still engage and still use that funding where we still fit.
Okay, Councillor Forrest. Anybody else? Councillor Leonard?
Yeah, thank you. In 5.1.10 of the report, it says to improve tenant feedback and engagement. How do you aim to promote digital inclusion? Thanks. And I've got another question. Do you want to ask 2 or just one? Yeah. Second one is 5.3.11. If option 3 was preferred with no formal recognition required, it says community groups could access the budget going forward. What type of projects would qualify for this funding? Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Leonard. Digital inclusion is a big area for us. I think it's a big area for across Wales in terms of tenant participation and gaining views and using data and using the data to drive business improvement and transformation. It's no different for us in terms of the way that we engage with our tenants. We're reaching out in a number of ways to try and get those that feel digitally able to engage with us. There's lots of promotion in our newsletters to try and get email addresses and other ways of kind of communicating with people, whether it's for smartphones as well, to ensure that we can engage them in that way. We're also a piece of work encouraging tenants in the future to use the website, engage more on the website, and use kind of forms and other areas of the website to engage with us. As we move forward, it is really important, not only for engagement in terms of day-to-day issues around your rents or your contract, your occupation contract, which we're hoping to maybe trial some form of portal for our tenants, but it's more important as we move into WHQS and decarbonisation, where we'll be using more new forms of heating, which are required to be online to use and get the data from the new heating sources to be able to operate the heating supply. You'll need to be a little bit more digitally savvy. So there's a piece of work with all our tenants if we're putting in new heating forms as well within there. And there is a requirement through the agreed and cabinet approved WHQS compliance policy, where we need to kind of physically go and see where those homes and properties aren't physically connected, and work with those where we can, work with the utility companies to ensure that they are physically connected, so then we can put in the new heating forms. This is over time. This isn't happening immediately. This is over the next period. So there's a lot of work going on there in terms of promoting digital inclusion for those reasons. And the last question, I think I touched on it slightly, I think, with Councillor Forehead's question around what sort of projects would qualify for the funding. I think in the past it was very low level venue hire and stuff like that. But I think in the future, if there are some innovative ideas that come forward about new groups and how they're constituted, how they're run, helping them out with their kind of terms of reference or how, board secretaries and stuff like that would be useful. But equally, in answer to the previous question, how we might kind of engage more digitally with them, I think would be a good piece of work and some funding well spent in that area.
Yep, another one, yeah.
And this is one that I'm just going to off the hoof. If funding is not sought via this avenue, would that money be redirected into different funding streams, or could it be if it's not used?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, it's a relatively small budget. I think it's around £10,000 in the grand scheme of things in our budgets. But we've got a lot. We have formal routes of engagement with our tenants. The tenant engagement strategy, once that's in place and once we've got that action plan in place, there may be other areas where we could direct some of that funding which doesn't divert away from tenant engagement, but it's in those new areas that are detailed in the strategy.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Leonard and Nick. Any further questions at all? No? Okay, in that case, the recommendation's been read out by Councillor Cook. Are we okay, Rob, to go to the vote?
Yes, certainly, Leader. So just to be clear with members of the Cabinet, it is option 3 that you are approving, is it? Yeah, okay. Yeah. So the poll will be there any moment. And there it is. And if you could cast your votes, please, on the 3 recommendations within the report. And the recommendations are unanimously approved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Okay, we'll now move on then to agenda item 6. That's the authorisation of officers in Environment and Regulatory Services, the Product Regulation and Metrology Act 2025. Easy to say. Over to you, Councillor Leonard.
Thank you. I hope my teeth are in securely, otherwise they're going to come out. The Product Regulation and Metrology Act 2025, which received royal assent on the 21st of July 2025, represents a major reform in the UK's approach to product safety, consumer protection and regulatory modernisation. It serves as an enabling framework, allowing the government to update and enforce product regulations through secondary legislation. Any new secondary legislation may include additional enforcement powers for trading standards officers and Caerphilly County Borough Council, and are therefore required to take appropriate measures to enable frontline officers to effectively enforce these laws. The Act empowers the government to address emerging safety risks, including those posted by digital products and online marketplaces. Platforms like Amazon and eBay are now directly responsible for the safety of products sold on their site. Authorities can proactively investigate unsafe products, impose sanctions and mandate recalls. The Act explicitly includes software and other digital components within its scope, ensuring safety standards apply to both physical and digital elements. Future regulations may promote accessibility and safety in AI-driven and software-reliant products. The Act allows the Secretary of State to introduce a new rule via secondary legislation, ensuring regulations can evolve with technology and market changes. The framework allows for selective alignment with EU products and environmental standards when beneficial to the UK. By applying consistent standards across the high street and online retailers, the Act supports fair competition. Clear, modernised regulations help businesses innovate while maintaining compliance. Authorities can impose obligations on all actors of the supply chain, including manufacturers, importers, distributors and certification bodies. Regulators can share safely data with emergency services and other enforcement bodies to respond quickly to risks. I would like to propose the recommendations in the report in 3.1, 3.2 and 3.3 that the Cabinet note the implementation of the Product Regulation and Metrology Act 2025, that the Director of Environment and Regulatory Services be authorised under the Digital Markets Competition and Consumers Act 2024 so that their officers within the diversion can utilise delegated powers to carry out their duties. And finally, to note that the Council's monitoring officer will make any necessary amendments to the Constitution to reflect the implementation of the Product Regulation and Metrology Act 2025 as detailed in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leonard. Somebody prepared to second the report? Councillor Cook?
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I'm happy to second the recommendations, but I have a question.
Of course, yeah.
Just wondering, what are the risks of non-compliance and how will this be policed?
Thank you, Councillor Cook. The ultimate risks of non-compliance for any business is prosecution. But of course, in relation to any business, especially local businesses, there's a hierarchy of actions that can be taken. And Trading Standards' initial actions would be to encourage compliance and to help and advise businesses to comply with the law.
Okay. Any further questions? Councillor Morgan?
Thank you. Can officers explain how the Act affects local businesses?
Thank you, Councillor. As far as local businesses are concerned, I think it's very beneficial for them as far as the Act is concerned. It's going to create a level playing field between online retailers and high street retailers. And this can be only good for local retailers who perhaps in the past have had barriers to their progression compared to online retailers who are often very difficult to locate as far as enforcers are concerned. So it will promote small and medium businesses locally.
Okay, Councillor Leonard again.
Thank you. How will online platforms be monitored, and will this add any extra strain on existing staff with regards to staff levels and duties? Thanks.
Any extra legislation that we have to enforce puts additional strain on staff. I imagine there'd be an initial strain in relation to local traders when they get to grips with any legislation. But through our market surveillance, which we carry out as a matter of course, responding to complaints, and also we're very intelligence-led at the moment, so we'll be responding to that intelligence. So it's very much business as usual, and we deal all the time with new businesses, startup businesses, and food industry, safety, and other products. So yes, it will be a bit of a strain, but really it would be business as usual.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? If not, the recommendations have been outlined in 3.1, 3.2 and 3.3. So Rob, are we okay to go to the vote, please?
Yes, very much so, Leader. Just as a point of clarification for Tim, the recommendation in the report talks about the Digital Markets Competition and Consumers Act 2024. Is that an error, is it?
I think that's an error.
Yeah, okay. So we are talking about the product regulation.
Yeah, and if it helps, if it helps members, we call it the PRAM Act. It's much easier.
Thanks for that, Tim. So, members, the vote is before you. Could you please cast your vote on the 3 recommendations within the report? And there we are. Many thanks. The recommendations are unanimously carried. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rob. We'll now move on to agenda item 7. That's a capital outturn for 2024 to 2025. And it's Councillor Leonard Stenner.
Thank you, Leader. This report provides details of actual capital expenditure for the 2024-25 financial year, and slippage that has been requested to be carried forward into 25-26. The recommendation is at 3.1 for Cabinet to note the provisional 24-25 capital budget outturn position of £117.111 million and approve the 2024-25 slippage to be carried forward into 25-26 of £19.636 million. The reason for the recommendation is to advise Cabinet of the provisional outturn of the 24-25 capital programme prior to completion of the annual external audit of the accounts by Audit Wales. I move.
Thank you, Councillor Stenner. And to second is Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I'd like to second the report with the recommendations listed by the Cabinet member. I also have a question.
Yeah.
Can I answer that? Ask that now. So with regards to the rising cost in capital projects, what effect is this having on our projects and slippage, please?
Leah.
Thank you. So tenders are returning significantly higher than anticipated, which is impacting project delivery. As a result, we are reviewing projects scopes and undertaking cost engineering to redesign elements and bring them within budget. Where this is not possible, we are seeking additional funding internally and from Welsh Government. These steps lead to delays in the programme, increasing slippage. Ultimately, we cannot deliver all the planned projects and must prioritise and repurpose funds accordingly.
Okay, thanks for that. Any further questions? No? Okay then. In that case, the recommendations have been outlined in 3.1, 3.2 and 3.3. And Rob, are we okay to go to the vote?
Certainly, Leader. Many thanks. Again, members, a vote will be before you any moment. If you could please cast your vote on the 2 recommendations within the report. And those recommendations have been unanimously approved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rob. We'll now move on to agenda item 8, and that is the Treasury Management and Capital Financing Prudential Indicators Outturn Report for 24-25, and that's Councillor Leonard Stenner.
Thank you again, Leader. This report provides Cabinet with the Treasury Management and Capital Financing together with Prudential Indicators for 24-25. In October 2010, the Authority adopted the Chartered Institution of Public Finance and Accountancy's Treasury Management in the Public Service Code of Practice, which requires the Authority to approve a Treasury Management semi-annual and annual reports. This report ensures that the Authority is implementing best practice in accordance with the Code. The Authority's annual Treasury Strategy and Capital Financing Prudential Indicators for 24-25 were approved by Council on the 27th of April 24. A balanced budget is set annually, which means that from a Treasury Management perspective, overall, the income during the year covers the expenditure. Treasury Management ensures that cash flow is adequately planned. Treasury Management is also in place to support the funding of the Authority's capital programme. The recommendations are shown at 3.1 of the report for Cabinet to note the content of this report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Stenner. Councillor Elaine Forrest.
Happy to second the report, please, Leader, but can I come back with a question? Excuse me. With inflation, I'm so sorry. With inflation and interests continuing to be volatile, how is this affecting our investments?
Thank you. So volatile interest rates and inflation reduce real returns on investments and increase market uncertainty, which limits available investment opportunities. To mitigate these effects, we can invest over longer periods to reduce short-term volatility and diversify investments to lower risk exposure. These strategies typically result in lower overall returns. To implement these effectively, we need a well-profiled capital programme that supports efficient cash flow, efficient cash flow and investment management. For 24-25, the investment income underachieved by 1.3 million, and we had to adjust the budget in 25-26 to reflect this.
Thanks for that. Any further questions? No? In that case, Cabinet asked to note the contents of this report outlined in 3.1. Do we have to go to a vote on that, or just for noting?
It is just for noting, Leader, so I don't think, strictly speaking, we need to vote on that one.
No, that's absolutely fine. Okay, our penultimate agenda item, that's maintenance and improvement works at Full Moon Recycling and Waste Transfer Station, and for this one is Councillor Chris Morgan.
Thank you, Leader. This report presents a proposal for essential maintenance and improvement works at the Full Moon Recycling and Waste Transfer Station, a critical facility within the Council's waste management infrastructure. In alignment with the Council's Waste and Recycling Strategy 2004, the Full Moon site will continue to serve as a bulking and transfer point for residual waste, supporting the transition to a blueprint-compliant recycling service. Following Cabinet's approval in September 25 for initial urgent repairs, further structural assessments have identified significant defects in the recycling hall, necessitating its full replacement. The proposed works include demolition and reconstruction of the recycling hall, repairs to the residual waste hall, and upgrades to site utilities and safety infrastructure. To maintain service continuity during the estimated 12-week construction period, contingency arrangements are required for the diversion of recycling and residual waste. Additionally, the report proposes the procurement of 6 new mobile plant machines to replace aged equipment at the household recycling centres across the borough, ensuring operation efficiency and reducing maintenance costs. The total estimated cost of the construction, contingency arrangements and plant replacement is £2,103,038, comprising 22,200 for recycling hole replacement and site repairs, 427,488 for contingency arrangements, and £953,350 for replacement of mobile plant and machinery. The recommendations in 3.1 of the report, Cabinet approval is sought to submit 2 funding bids to Welsh Government for 60% of these costs, with the remaining 40% to be met through the extended producer responsibility funding. I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Have we got a seconder? Councillor George.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to second the report.
Okay. Councillor McConnell.
Thank you, Leader. Funding from the Extended Producer Responsibility Scheme is also being used for the Council's Cleaner and Greener project. Is there enough balance to cover these works at full moon?
Okay, thanks. Who's going to answer that one? Oh, sorry, Hayley. So didn't see it. Sorry.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor O'Connell. So, as outlined in 8.2 of the report, the allocated amount of EPR, so Extended Producer Responsibility, to be paid to the authority for 25-26 is circa 5.4 million. So 3.2 million of this has been allocated to the purchase of the new site to replace the depot at Tiraberth and to the Cleaner Greener initiative, as you outlined. And in September, as Councillor Morgan said, members agreed to use the EPR fund to also fund the initial maintenance works at Full Moon at a cost of circa 460,000. So the total of phase 2 of the works and the replacement plant would use up almost all of the remaining allocation. However, there is sufficient allocation there. But as is proposed, we are looking at submitting a funding application to Welsh Government for 60% of these costs. And that then is outlined in 8.3. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Elaine Forrest.
Thanks, Leader. I think this has partially been answered, but I wanted to ask, will the funding previously promised by Welsh Government pay towards this work at Full Moon? As I said.
Okay, thank you. So the funding previously committed by Welsh Government to the authority on submission of the OBC was for the delivery of the waste strategy. So it doesn't include these maintenance works at Full Moon. However, as I stated to the previous question, we are looking at putting an additional funding bid in for 60% of these costs. Thank you.
Councillor George.
Yeah, thank you. When we talk about replacement plant, are we talking about just the Full Moon or all of our CA sites? I don't know whether I missed it. What was that?
Okay, thank you, Councillor George. That would be across the whole HRC network. So there would be plant allocated to the Full Moon site, both the waste transfer and the HRC, but across the remaining HRC network as well.
Yeah, just a follow on from that. So obviously it says here in the recommendations that the 6 new mobile plant machines, as Councillor George has asked there. So our current ones are aging or beyond their respectable life. Is that okay, Marcus? That would be correct. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, that's correct.
And Hayley, yourself, is that okay?
Yeah, that's correct, Leader. They are quite aging, and we are now having difficulty with maintenance, spending a lot of time off the road and considerable repairs in terms of the maintenance as well.
Just another quick one on that. I probably know the answer to it, but obviously with newer machines, how often are the aging ones sort of out of commission? Then is it, once every month, or is it more regular than that? Because I'm just thinking from the eyes of the public now, obviously new machinery, more reliable, I would guess. You'd be having a better service.
Yeah, I haven't got all that information in front of me, Leader, but you're right, it's becoming more and more regular, and it's across the whole network. And the disruption that then causes on site is people having to wait a bit longer to perhaps access the skips on site, and also we're transporting skips that are not as full to capacity as they could be. So it causes some disruption and delay, and the older the vehicles are getting, the more they are tending to be off the road whilst we're having the maintenance undertaken. The benefit of purchasing the newer machines, apart from the obvious of having newer machines, is they would come with a maintenance contract and sort of warranty for the first couple of years as well. So that's something we'd be exploring.
Okay, Marcus, do you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I just wanted to add as well is we're having to hire in machines at the moment as well to compensate for the ones that are off-road for maintenance. I think I'm right in saying, Hayley, we've got 2 on hire at the moment.
Yeah, that's correct. So we've got 2 on hire, and we are looking at whether we need to bring a 3rd in, because over the last couple of months in particular, we've experienced considerable issues with some of the plant.
Okay, Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Leader. Will the household recycling centre that is co-located at the same site as a waste transfer station remain open to the public during the works?
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Cook. Yes, as with the initial phase 1 of works, the household recycling centre would remain unaffected, so therefore would remain open to the public. There would be no disruption to that site at all. Thank you.
Councillor Leonard, and then I'll bring you in, Marcus.
Thank you. While the site is having an overhaul, are there any plans to put a reuse shop on site? As the only one is in Penalta Industrial Site, there's nothing south of the valley. Anything south of the valley? Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Leonard. Whilst there are no plans currently to put a reuse facility on that site, and that's largely due to the footprint of the site and lack of space, as part of the waste strategy, members will remember that we have allocated and included in the waste strategy an additional reuse facility within the borough. However, the location of that site is yet to be identified. We will be looking at options for land, to bring an additional facility in, but as it stands, that isn't at full moon. Thanks.
Okay, yeah, Chris, Councillor Morgan.
Yeah, thanks, Leader. I just wanted to point out an error in my introduction. I mentioned that the costs for replacement of mobile plant and machinery is 953,350. This exact, and it is 979,570.
Yeah, thanks for that clarification, Councillor Morgan. Any further questions? No? Okay then. The recommendations have been read out. 3.1 and 3.2. Rob, can you take us to the vote, please?
Yes, certainly, Leader. Members, if you can cast your vote on the poll before you on the 2 recommendations found within the report. And those recommendations were unanimously carried. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rob. The last item on the agenda is my report. Regeneration Board amended terms of reference. So the purpose of this report is to seek Cabinet approval to amend the Regeneration Project Board's terms of reference to include evaluation of bids and resultant recommendations to Cabinet in relation to the new funding streams that have been announced as replacements of the Shared Prosperity Fund. These include Pride in Place Impact Fund, Pride in Your Place, and Local Growth Fund. As a bit of a background, the Regeneration Project Board was established on the 30th of May 2018 to initially agree the development and implementation of regeneration projects efficiently using external funding. It enabled cross-party input and was praised for its agility in responding to regeneration opportunities and making recommendations to Cabinet. In October 2025, the UK Government announced the end of the Shared Prosperity Fund effective from the 31st of March 2026 and introduced 3 new funding streams: the Pride in Place Impact Fund, Pride in Your Place Fund, and the Local Growth Fund. In 2.4, it says the only guidance received so far relates to the Pride in Place Impact Fund, and this was true at the time of writing the report, but on Thursday the 6th of November, leaders of councils and the relevant members of Parliament and members of the Senedd received a letter from the Secretary of State for Wales with guidance on the Pride in Place Fund. Without reading the whole letter to Cabinet verbatim, some of the key points in that letter were that the qualifying area must be a single contiguous area within the relevant local authority boundary. contain generally between 5,000 and 15,000 residents, or in exceptional cases where there is strong supported evidence, slightly larger or smaller populations may be supported, and to be supported by clear evidence base to identify the most in need neighbourhoods, drawing on the Welsh Index of Multiple Deprivation as primary data source. So moving to the recommendations, in 3.1 it is recommended that Cabinet agrees the new terms of reference for the Regeneration Project Board to include oversight, prioritisation and recommendations to Cabinet in relation to the new funds outlined in 5.4, and it is recommended that each political group confirms their nomination or nominations for the board in accordance with the terms of reference. Is somebody prepared to second the report? Councillor Stenner?
Happy to second the report, Chair. Leader.
Okay, now we move to questions. Understand. Oh, Councillor McConnell first.
Thank you, Leader. I have two questions. Can an officer please outline the 3 key objectives for allocation of funding for the Pride in Place Impact Fund? And my second question is the Pride in Place Impact Fund all capital? Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor McConnell. Mark Williams.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor McConnell. I'll answer the second one first. Yes, the fund is 100% capital. There's no revenue element involved, which makes it slightly challenging, but it is, that's the way it's been set out. In terms of 3 objectives, first one is community spaces, creating, extending, improving or refurbishing existing community facilities, enabling community organisations to take control or ownership of underused but valued local assets. Second one is public spaces, enhancing the physical environment in public spaces. Examples include new or improved green spaces or public squares, improved outdoor play, sports and leisure spaces, street furniture, public art and wayfinding. And the third one is high street and town centre revitalisation, making these areas more attractive and welcoming places where people congregate and which encourage economic activity. Examples being things like shop frontage improvements, adaptations that bring premises back into use, streetscape improvements, public art, trails, wayfinding, creating or improving infrastructure for regular markets. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, for that explanation. Councillor Lennister.
Yeah. How will community groups be encouraged to bid for the funding projects?
Thank you, Councillor Stenner. We've already had some groups that have already come forward based on, obviously, central government's announcement on this fund and the activity of some MPs and MSs. We've already got some that come forward, but after today, we will need to put some release out just to tell everyone that we are in receipt of this fund and they are welcome to submit applications for consideration by the Regeneration Board if today's report is agreed.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Councillor Shane Cook.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. How often will the cross-party Regen Board meet?
It used to meet monthly, and I guess we would probably stick with that, but I'm guessing it can meet as often or as little often as required, really. I'm probably in the early days of sorting this fund out. It may need to meet every couple of weeks, but that may perhaps become less frequent afterwards.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Councillor Leonard.
Thank you. I think you slightly touched on the answer to my one question. How is the local authority engaged with local community groups and stakeholders? I think you said literature was going to be sent out, so that covers that. Have we got any takeaways to learn from the last cross-party Regeneration Board, with regards to efficiency and, dealing with applications without creating too much red tape? Have we got anything there we can go on that we can speed up the process to make community groups feel the benefit quicker?
Thanks, Councillor Land. Obviously, the Regeneration Board previously was mainly dealing with regeneration projects that were ours, if you like, to deliver, to come up with and deliver. Probably the lessons from the early days of the Regeneration Board, and some of the lessons from the SPF board. The regeneration board previously had to go to cabinet with everything for a decision. And obviously that takes time. Cabinet only meets once a month. There's delays in that, and it adds a layer of bureaucracy. So these recommended amendments to the terms of reference do give the regeneration board some power to make some decisions, which the SPF board also had, and which proved very useful in being able to spend our SPF allocation, which we were extremely successful in doing.
Okay. Few observations from me. Good questions. Obviously, at the time of writing the report, we hadn't had much, or if any, guidance on the Pride of Place Fund or the Local Growth Fund. We've got more of that now. But in terms of the Impact Fund, it looks as though, it's 100% capital, but it looks as though it ticks the right boxes with a number of the community organisations, and we put a press release out, obviously, very soon for them to be able to bid into it. It's important for us as a cabinet, and it's obviously important for the regeneration board to allocate the funding along with that criteria. But the purpose of the fund is to support organisations, and we look forward, I think, with the cross-party regen board sitting down as soon as possible to see where this funding will go to. So I know we've had a number of groups come forward so far. There should be more after today. Mark, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I think you hit on it there. We need to organise a meeting fairly sharply now after today, and obviously after the calling period. I think that any release to the public should go out after that board has met, because the last thing we want is being deluged with stuff that some of it is meaningless. So we need to put some criteria around what we're asking for from community groups and what's expected of them in coming forward. So I think it's important to have a meeting before we release anything.
That's important. Yeah, I agree. Okay, with that then, we will go to the recommendations, Rob.
Thanks, Leader. 2 recommendations in the report. Members, please can you vote on those recommendations on the poll that will be before you any moment. And those recommendations were approved unanimously. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Cabinet. Thank you, officers. That's the end of the Cabinet meeting. Can I therefore draw the meeting to a close?